In this lecture, we'll focus on CSS styling, which means like how to apply CSS styling on elements in HTML of JSX. Alright, so if you talk about external CSS, then it doesn't have a considerable difference. But if you talk about internal and inline styling, then there is some difference. If we talk about traditional index.html, and if you want to apply inline and internal CSS, so let's say we want to apply styling on element in the traditional index.html, we can do it in this way. We'll write style is equal to, so let's say we want to change the color of the h1 element, so we'll write color, we'll put the colon, then we'll put here black, so it's giving us an error apparently, because it's a JSX element, so it's not the element of the initial index.html. So the styling method will be different in this case. So how can we apply the internal and inline styling on a JSX element? Let me show you how we can do it. So now I'm removing it as it's giving me an error. So we are going to use another method. We'll write style, then we'll put another expression inside this one. Let me put some content. So hey, how are you? Alright, so I want to change the color of this content. So for that, we'll write color red inside this expression. Now we'll save it. Now I'll check that inline styling has been applied to the h1 element. We'll go to the browser, and as you can see, it's been applied on it. Okay, so this is the way to apply the inline element on JSX, on the JSX element basically. So for example, we'll take a div and then we'll put an h1 in this div and then we save it. If you want to apply styling on this div, this can be done in the same way like we did it in the previous one. So we're changing its background color to green. If you want to give another property, then you will have to put a comma. So I'm giving another property, height, 100 VH. So this is the height. It's showing me an error because we added a comma here. We are giving width as well so that our screen should be colored. Okay, I gave the width 100%. So what have we done till now? We took a div and added h1 in it. This div will be covering our whole screen as we've given 100 VH height and 100% width. So now we'll check that the inline styling has been applied on elements or not. We'll move towards the browser. So as you can see, it's been applied. So inline styling works in this way for the JSX elements. So this was our inline styling. If you want to apply internal styling, then follow these instructions. We'll remove this as we've learned this concept. So now you can feel that it's a little bit irritating to write too much properties and it seems congested as well. Okay, if we make a variable and give these properties in that variable and we call that variable in style, then it will be better. So we're going to do it that way. Okay, we're removing it. Now we'll make a variable with the name of const main and it will make an object. So we'll give background green, height 100 VH, width 100%. So this is our variable. If you want to apply these properties in this single div, then how can we do it? I told you that if you want to put an outside variable in single HTML div element, like in a single HTML div or element, then you need to use the expression. Like that's what you should do if you want to put some outside variable in a single HTML div or element. You need to use the expression. Expressions are the curly braces. So we'll put the variable here. Now we'll input it and see if the values will apply or not. So, okay, you can see if the value applies or not. Let me add some content as well. So, hey, what's up? I'll write this. So this is our content. Now we'll see whether this CSS will be applied in this way or not. So as you can see, it's been applied. So whatever properties we've given to the variable, we simply put the properties. So this is how we can do an internal and inline styling in React with JSX elements. All right, and now on to the next lecture. In the last lecture, we saw how JSX allows us to use HTML and JavaScript side by side. If we use a traditional method in which we had to make an HTML file where all the elements will appear, and then we wanted to manipulate those elements, then we had to make a separate JavaScript file in which we call those elements through ID or class. And then we use the DOM manipulation. But React makes it easy, in the sense that it allows us to make an HTML file, and in that HTML we use JavaScript and manipulate those HTML elements. So that's the basic concept behind it. But now we'll move a little towards practical things and we'll learn how it works. So here I'll tell you like three concepts. I'll show you like three concepts. You can follow any of them. Before, let me give you an example. So first of all, we'll make a variable and we'll make it like a first variable. That's what we'll call it. And in this variable, we'll store the value expert. And here we're taking another variable and we'll name it second variable. And in this one, we'll store the value developer. So these are our two variables. Let's now see how to use them in our HTML. So there are three ways, and you can use it as it suits you. So here we're taking an H1 element. Let me tell you that they are basically React fragment. So I'm just telling you that this is basically like they are basically a React fragment. So for example, if you want to use more than one div or elements, then you have to put it in fragment, like in a fragment manner. So it compiles and renders whatever is in the fragment. So let me show you like how the manipulation in one element works. So this is an H1 element. Now if I write if I want to show the value expert of the first variable, then this is how to do it. If I write directly here, then it will not work. So let me show you. I wrote first variable directly and saved it. Now you can see that it's been displayed as it's here. I wanted to display the value expert. So how can I do that? We can do that through expressions, curly bracket. You will put the curly braces and we'll put the name of the variable and save it. These expressions allow us to use JavaScript. So now I gave the variable in the expression and saved it. Now we're moving to the browser and we can see the changes. So as you can see, it's displayed the value of our variable, not the variable itself. So this is the best thing you can use to access the variable's value in an H1 tag. You won't have to make another JavaScript file to access the variable's value. Okay, so besides that, I'm displaying this value as well. So I gave a space and put a second variable and then I save it. Now we'll go to the browser and as you can see, both values have been shown here. So that was the first method. Now we'll see the second method. So I'll write we want to write both variables in one expression. So how do we achieve that? We take the first variable. If you're writing in the same expression, then you will have to concatenate. So it will give me an error if I don't concatenate it. So for concatenation, you'll just need to put the plus and then you can give your second variable. Okay, so now we'll save it and we'll see what are the changes that are happening. So we got the values of both variables, but there's no space between them. We want the space here, so it's not a big issue. We'll put commas after the plus and put space between them and we'll concatenate it again. We save it. And now, as you can see, the changes have occurred. The space has appeared. But as you can see, we had to write a space. So for example, if you have a paragraph with spaces, then you have to give spaces again and again. It will take enough time. So we have another concept, which is the template literals. So now we'll use it. There is a button in your keyboard, like back tick. You have to press on that. I'm removing this and then I'm pressing the back tick button. So as you can see, it's appeared. So there is a simpler way to what I'm doing. So you can take the expression and then take the back tick. So now here I'm writing we are. Next, I want to get the value of the first variable. So if you want to show the value of the variable in the back tick, then to do that, you have to use the dollar sign. Without it, you can't show it. You can't show that. So now we'll write first variable and we'll write the second variable with it. Now, as you can see, I've written everything in a single expression. Okay, we can save it and we'll go to the browser to see it. And as you can see, we are expert developers. But the difference is that we used literals in the expression. So when you are using literals to show the value of the variable, then you will have to use the dollar sign. Without it, like without that, you will get errors. So this was the template literals, and now let's move on to the next lecture. In this lecture, we'll talk about a very important concept of React.js, which is named components. So we use components for reusability. If we talk about traditional coding or simple HTML, and we made a website which has 4 different pages, and then we want different headers on each page, then we'll have to make headers separately for each page. You know, like the traditional way of writing some code with HTML. But with React, it's much easier. It's much simpler for us. This concept of component is very helpful to make things easy for us. So component basically allows us to write the code in one place and then use that single code in different functions or places. So with an example, let's understand how it works. Looking at this render function, for example, taking a simple h1 and writing welcome to our site, and then we save it. Now we'll display it. So as you can see, it's been displayed. Now we'll try to make a component. So we'll make a file in the folder whose name will be JSX, because React will get to know that JSX has been used here. That's why the extension should be JSX. Otherwise, you can set the extension as JS. Okay, so now this file has been prepared, and now we'll have to convert this file into a component. So this is done using a function. We will import React in it, because you have to import React everywhere, like React is used. Like you have to import it wherever you want to use it. That's why we're doing that. Like that's why we're importing React. Okay, so you can use JSX in React. Now we'll make a function, as I told you, and that function is necessary for the component. So we'll name it header. Our function is created, so we'll have to return a value. Okay, so we'll return the value h1, and we will put the content, welcome to our site. Now that our function has been created, we will find out how to reuse it in different pages. So to do that, we'll export this function. We'll write export and then default. Okay, so we wrote default so that I'm exporting a single function. If there were more than one function and we had to export them, then we would have written the names of the various functions in curly braces instead of using default. But right now, we have one function, and that's why we are using default to export the function. Okay, so recall that React works in hierarchy. So first there is a parent, and then it has a children. So first you have the parent, then we have the children, and it's up to you, to determine the number of children that you want. So right now we are still in the initial level, so we'll see the basic things. And when the task will get a little bit more complicated, then we'll get to know its importance. So here our component has been formed and exported, so we'll reuse the component easily. Okay, so we'll save it and we'll move our index.js file. Now we want to use our component header.jsx here. So as you've exported it, so we'll have to import it as well. Without importing it, you won't be able to use it. Okay, so we'll write header, and we're importing it from header.jsx component. Now our component is imported. You can put header.jsx with it, but React is powerful enough to judge what is importing, so the extension is not necessarily doing so. Okay, so we got the component and the function. Now we can use the content of the function here. So we'll try to use this one. We try to display this component here. It will go there and display the content. Now I'm saving it and I'm going to the browser to check. And as you can see, it's been displayed in front of us. So if we change the content to welcome to our site, yo, and as you can see, it's being read. It read it very well. So it read it as well. Okay. We can use it in different functions and components as well. So let me show you how it works. We'll write it multiple times, and as you can see, everything was displayed, like it displayed all of them. So we don't have to write the code again and again. We'll write the code once, we will export it, and we'll import it whenever we need it to be used. That's how simple it is. So it was it was a basic level of how all of this works. But when we move on to the next lectures, we will like little by little explore some more advanced topics, and you'll get to know like the importance of the component and how it works in React.js. Okay, so that was the basic concept behind components. And now on to the next lecture. In this lecture, we'll discuss one more concept in React.js, which is props. So props is directly related to components. In the last lecture, we learned how to make components and how to reuse them. If we make components or functions, so we learned how to do it. Now, if we wanna pass the data of that function or component, how can we do it? Let's see. So components basically work like a function. In functions, we use parameters, and then we have arguments to pass the data. In React.js, we use props as an argument for the components. So let me show you in practical terms how all of this works, so that you'll have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Alright, so recall again that props are related to components. Okay, so we'll make a component in the source folder with the name user. Now our file is prepared. We'll write its boilerplate and we'll React import as we are using JSX. Okay, so after that we have to give a function name. So we'll give the function name user. This is the function we made. If you want to reuse it, then we have to export it. So we'll use export default. Since it's just a function, we used default. So here component has been created, and we can reuse it anywhere we want. Okay, so I'm adding a content in it. We'll write return keyword, the return keyword. Okay, so as I told you, if you have to use more than one element in JSX, then you have to write it in the React fragment. Okay, so I'm using two HTML elements. One will be used in H1, in which I'll write my name is John. And with that, I'll take the P tag, in which I'll write I am a front-end developer. So we are now going to export our component. We can easily reuse this component. So now we'll go back to our index.js file and we'll import the component which we had made. Okay, so we'll write import user from user, as we are in this directory. So that's why we accessed user.jsx file. So we are getting an error. We mistakenly put dots here. Okay, so I just removed it. So our component has been imported. Now we'll call it and see how it shows. Okay, so we wrote it here and we save it. Now we'll go to the browser to see if it works properly. So it displays what we had in mind, but there's a complication. So, and the complication is that right now we wrote the details of just one user. If I want to have 7 or 8 different users, how it works, how can we do it? Let's see. So I'm copying it, I'm making 4 users, and as you can see, the content is the same, but I want that their details should be different. I want to have like different details. So think about it for a, try to pause and think about it. So imagine I have to create content for different users. How can I do it? Okay, so normally we create several files, but it's not effective and it's memory consuming. So we have to do it differently. If not, it will be a huge process. Okay, so I think I should do something like, for example, I can send dynamic data from the parent to the children. So basically, it's our parent here, and this is its child. So it's working as a function like we use to pass data through parameters and arguments, in the same way like when we passed components through props. Okay, so we'll remove it here and we'll try to pass its arguments. Okay, so this is a user and its name is John. I'm taking another argument, expertise, and I'll write front end developer. So this is the child and this one is its parent. Okay, so these properties are sending here, and as we are sending arguments to the child, so we have to access them as well. Otherwise we won't know, we won't know that we are getting properties from the parent. That's why we have to access the data. Okay, so to access these properties, we will use the keyword props. That's the keyword that we'll be using. So we'll have to use it if we want to access the properties of a parent. Now we are removing it and we'll try to fetch the data dynamically. Okay, so now I'll write my name is, and I'll write props.name as a way to recall, to use them in curly braces. Okay, so I have accessed the properties of the parent with the help of props. Now I'm taking a p tag and I'll write I am a, and we'll write expertise props.expertise. So as you can see, its expertise have appeared. So we have the expertise in front of us. Okay, so now I'll save it and we'll go to the browser to check the changes. The page is reloading as we did not save the file. Okay, so now I've saved the file, and as you can see, the data we were sending dynamically from the parent to the child is showing in front of us. So now if I have 3 different users, then I'll copy it and we'll paste it 3 times, and I'm changing the name to Mark and expertise to back-end developer. Okay, so here I'll change the name to Sarah and the expertise to DevOps engineer. Now I'll save it and you will see what happens in our browser. So as you can see in front of you, we took 3 different users and their properties have been shown in front of us. So we didn't have to make a separate boilerplate. We just made one boilerplate and input the properties with the help of props, and we accessed the properties like we gave access to the child through props. So React made this process for us very simple, and it made it easy for us that we made just one boiler and set one structure, and we put properties where we called the component. So we just have to change the property, then we can get the data dynamically. So that was it for the concept of props. I tried to simplify it and explain it in the clearest manner possible. I hope everything is crystal clear to you now. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this lecture, and now on to the next one. In this lecture, we'll study hooks. We'll learn about hooks. So let's visit React.js tutorial website to see how hooks work. Alright, so in React.js, they are having 2 components, which are class-based components and function-based components. So talking about class-based components is like you're writing any function in the class-based component, then you convert the class into a function, and then after that you have to use this function, but not for functional-based components. It's not having this complication. So by using these functions, you can use them under the hooks. Alright, so this thing is much more simplified when we have hooks. So many of the developers are moving from class-based components to functional-based components because in this one, you just need to write a few lines of code and you won't have complications. So basically, we're having many hooks. For example, I'm on the React.js official website here, and in this one, it's having a use state hook and many other hooks like the use effect, use navigator. So they are having pre-built hooks, and you can also make your own hooks. Okay, so I'll explain it to you, and I'll provide you some practical examples as well regarding how they work. Hooks are mostly written on top of something. So for example, you make any function. If you want to use state in this one, then you cannot define it in it. You can only use it under the top of the function. So you have to define the hooks which are under, and after defining the functions which are under, you will use the hooks in them. So for example, if I write state, update state, and defined use state, you have to make sure that when you initialize the use state, you can import it from the React. So in the next lecture, I'll tell you about that with the help of use state, like how we manage it within the state. So talking about the use effect, we are having two arguments in it, functions and dependency. I'll talk about them all in the next lecture.